Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Ooh, sir. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show Friday edition. We also have Keith Engel in here. He'll be talking some college sports with us. Let's see. Don't forget to download that Roku app, channel search on your Roku TV. And if you don't have Roku TV, free app, download it on your tablet, laptop, and your mobile phone. So there you go, folks. So I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack. And, of course, we have Keith Engel in from TGI Sports. Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be back. I feel like I haven't been with you guys in a month.
Yeah.
You came back from your cruise. Well, Keith, I mean, you didn't pick anything unwanted along the way.
My wife did, but I have managed to stay clear.
Mac hates cruises, just for the record.
You know, listen, to me, it's airplanes because the last two cruises we took were out of New York. No airplanes, no sickness. We go away. My wife gets cold. So
let's get to some college sports, Keith. In college basketball, defensive scout J.I. Lucas had a large hand in recruiting Duke's roster. Now, I guess they might be lining up for a coach maybe next year, too.
Miami Hurricanes have if you listen to enough sources, the deal's already done. And he has been a big factor in John Shire being able to rebuild that Duke's luster here in a very quick time after Coach K's retirement. I think that would be a big loss for Duke and maybe a good move for Miami. Jim Larangaro, who's been a great coach for decades, stepped away in the middle of Miami's season. A terrible season. He just had this team in the Final Four like 2 years ago.
Wait, Keith, but that was Coach K's hand-picked successor.
John Shire? Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, does Duke want to move away from him, or does he just want to go to Miami, maybe because of the weather, the lifestyle?
It's not John Shire leaving. It's his top assistant who's done the recruiting for him, Lucas. Yeah. Shire's staying. They're having a fabulous year. They've lost one game since Thanksgiving. They're as hot as any team in the country. They're playing great basketball. He's not going anywhere. He played for Coach K at Duke as well.
Oh, all right. So Georgia knocks Florida to a number 2 seed and moves closer to the field of 68. Does Georgia make it in, Keith?
You know, it's a big resume building win to beat the number 3 team in the country. They're only like 16 and 12 overall. My big problem is they're 5 and 10 in the SEC.
Oh,
We're talking about 14 teams potentially getting in from the SEC. That's what the Athletic had the other day. And at least four of those teams would be well under 500. Oklahoma's 4 and 10. They're on the bubble. I have a big problem with these teams that are especially so far under 500 in conference, getting in at the expense of some other decent mid-majors who might lose their conference tournament and not get in. And it's not going to change. I mean, that's with the SEC and the Big Ten being so top-heavy. This is going to continue. I think the SEC will break the record, which is 11 teams in, with however many they get. I think they'll get at least 12.
okay. Good morning, Rick. Glad to have you aboard. Hubert Davis, it was kind of secret, signs an extension with the University of North Carolina.
On the flip side of John Shire at Duke, they came in at the same time. He replaced Coach Williams, Roy Williams there, former UNC great, former Nick, Hubert Davis, and he's had a bit of a roller coaster ride. His first year was not very good, but then he had a run to the Final Four. And he's had a good year, then a bad year, and this year has not been very good. They're securely on the bubble and right now out. And again, they probably ought to be in if you're going to take some of these teams that are, as I said before, are 4 and 10 in conference in the SEC. I mean, North Carolina is above 500 in conference and has a better overall record than some of these teams. But, you know, there's all these metrics that they want to use now. And, you know, conference record doesn't seem to be one of them. I was a little surprised to see the extension through 2030, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe it's probably done at this time to secure the transfer portal opportunities and the recruiting opportunities, historical recruiting type opportunities, so that they can keep this program afloat. If they leave it up in the air, it's going to be very hard when this new transfer portal opens for them to get kids to come here if the coaching situation is up in the air. So he's a good guy. He's probably a good coach. It's always tough to replace, a legend. Some guys do it better than others. John Shire's had an easier transition from Coach K than Hubert Davis has had, but I think he's a good guy and a good coach, and he probably deserves a couple more years anyway.
Well, has Roy Williams been actively mentoring Hubert Davis? Because Coach K has been doing that at Duke.
He's been around you see him at the games. How much he's around practices and whatnot, I don't know. My sense is that he has not been maybe as active as Mike Krzyzewski's been at Duke.
Okay. A little college football. Matt McGloin, former college and NFL quarterback, resigned from Boston College. Keith, it's one of your favorite teams, Boston College, only after 3 days.
I'm not sure what the deal is there. Bill O'Brien. It's funny. Bill O'Brien did a very similar thing at Ohio State just last year. He went there and he was there maybe a month and took the job at BC as a head coach. That's not the situation here. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. I'll have to dig into that a little bit before the next college football huddle. But BC's had a tough time, as has Syracuse, as has some other schools, ever since the Big East. Pretty much the most of the teams, the good teams, moved to the ACC. It's hurt them in basketball. It's hurt them in football because their recruiting bases have been now invaded by the rest of the ACC, and they've struggled. BC struggled greatly in football, and it's not a great football program, but it's had a pretty good history. I follow BC myself because a friend of mine's son went to school there for a very small school here upstate Amsterdam, New York, and was an NFL player. He played offensive line there with Matt Ryan. Went to a lot of games. We had a lot of fun there.
Isn't Boston College the one that there's really no the field's there and it's within a city inside Boston?
It's in Cherry Hill. Yeah, Cherry Hill. Kind of, Boston's kind of broken up into 8 different kind of sections, right? It's on the outskirts of Boston and Cherry Hill. It's a beautiful campus and a beautiful stadium. Not one of the biggest or most updated, but it's a really great college football venue. You see it on my when I do the football show. I always usually have it in my background. That's their home field.
Let's see. Of course, whenever you have a committee of a bunch of people, there's always a problem coming to a decision, right? And the playoff remains in limbo. Execs explored the changes, no decision. This is all about the seeding, Keith. After having a playoff game, reseeding it, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do it.
I would be for the reseeding. I think just given, I don't know. I kind of flip flop on this, right? I want to give champions some advantage. I don't care if they're ranked 20th or 5th. Win your conference championship, you're going to get that advantage. This is one of the things, and again, I think whatever they do, they need to get rid of some of the confusion because the committee will vote, will rank the teams, then they seed the teams. And the seedings don't match the rankings. So it gets very confusing for especially casual fans. Plus, it hinders some teams. I mean, number one, Oregon, who was the number one seed, had a much harder path and didn't play good anyway, but they had a much harder path to potentially get to the final than, say, Penn State or Notre Dame. And it's probably not fair, but there's bigger issues in this. This shouldn't be resolved. I think there'll be some resolution to this maybe before next year. There's a contract that's expiring after next year, which they're probably not going to be able to do a lot except maybe tweak it with the seating. The bigger news is really after this contract expires. Right now, all the major conference presidents and Notre Dame all have voting rights, basically. Once this new contract comes in play in 2026, the SEC and the Big Ten are calling all the shots. And they want to go to 14 teams, maybe 16 teams. But regardless of the number, they want 4 automatic bids apiece for their conferences, 2 for the Big 12, 2 for the ACC, and then you'd only have 2 at-larges left if you were at 14 teams. And you're not going to get the best field if you're taking the 4th best team in each one of those leagues when there could be a better team out there for an at-large. I don't like the power these 2 conferences are going to be given, but because of the landscape, they'll just say, if you don't give us the power, give us what we want, we'll go play on our own, right? You talked about this a couple of years ago, Mac, with the super conference, and it's still a possibility where there's one, 48, 64 team conference playing 4 different divisions or whatever, and then they build their playoff off of that. And if the NCAA wants to stay in this game, which they do because the money is so big, they're going to probably kowtow to what they want. And I don't think it's good for the tournament or the playoff, and I don't think it's good for college football at all.
Yeah. So, we normally, me and Jack don't talk about the WNBA, but I guess we got to talk about this. Diana Taurasi retires. She has 3 WNBA championships, 6 gold medals, 11-time WNBA champ, 5-time WNBA scoring champion, NCAA champion. I mean, she's got a lot of accolades. And of course, she's from UConn, which is, what we got up here. So,
before long before there was a. Oh my gosh! Help me out with who's our new superstar in the WNBA?
Caitlin Clark.
Gosh, Caitlin Clark. Yes, thank you. It was Diana Taurasi and it was Sue Bird and Rebecca Lobo. These were the guys, and Swoops and some other guys, right? There's girls. Sorry, I'll get myself in trouble here. There's just a handful of really women that people recognize the name and help build that brand before the Caitlin Clarks and Reese's came in, and they did a great job. And Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird are the 2 that really stick out to me because they played for a long time. 20 years is a long time, and it's one thing I enjoy is following those types of careers. I haven't necessarily been a big WNBA fan, but I followed the end of Sue Bird's career the same way, and Diana Diane Taurasi's done a great job of being an ambassador for the league, and she'll be missed. Those people, anybody who's been around a long time in any sport and been that type of ambassador is going to be missed.
Yeah, you're right. So let's get into some football. Brady and Matt Stafford meet at the Combine. Las Vegas Review said Brady had been in contact with Stafford's camp, and Brady recently hosted Stafford at his home.
Yeah.
So,
It's becoming more and more obvious that Tom Brady's running that operation. On a little bit of a side note, I don't know how he continued to do his day job for Fox if he's going to be this involved in the day-to-day operations. He's already got a list of 10 things he can't do on broadcast. It's going to get worse, and maybe he's planning on stepping away from that. But I don't have a problem in being involved. I'm just not sure how he can do both jobs. Stafford would give that team, there's some talent on that team, especially on the offensive side of the football, at least with Bauer and I guess their wide receiver positions are a bit weakened since Devontae Adams left. But quarterback is the big hole, as it is on several teams, and you've got to have a quarterback to win.
But
now, he's got there's a very short window of opportunity here for Matthew Stafford. He's 37 years old, so
right.
If you read between the lines, this could mean a red flag insofar as Shedeur Sanders is concerned, because Brady reportedly is a mentor to Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
In all the mock drafts, Shedeur Sanders is probably going to be that number 6 for the Raiders, even though you never know. Maybe one of the teams will take him earlier. Maybe a team will trade up. Maybe Brady realizes there's no guarantee we could get Shedeur Sanders. So I like Matthew Stafford a lot. I want to get him. But if Brady's not that high on Shedeur Sanders for the Raiders to draft him, and Brady, let's face it, not all great quarterbacks are astute when it comes to quarterback talent. Look at John Elway, for example, okay? I mean, he couldn't miss on Peyton Manning, of course, but he missed on everyone else. But if Brady's not that high on Shedeur Sanders as being a Raider quarterback going forward, that's a real red flag.
It is. I've said for a while that if there's a guy that may drop in the draft like a rock, and we've seen it in the past, right? Brady from Notre Dame, even bigger names that did pan out like Aaron Rodgers and Dan Marino, they all fell in the draft a lot further than people thought they would. If there's a candidate for that this year, I think Shedeur Sanders is that guy, and that is a red flag for something like that happening. Now, it also could be because now we've got a precedent set last year. I mean, Atlanta went out and drafted a older quarterback, paid him a lot of money, and drafted a quarterback in the first round, which was a little bit shocking. The Raiders, I would think, if they take Stafford, they're going to want to draft to improve the team today and not later. But again, after seeing what Atlanta did last year, who knows what teams will do today? I would go out and improve the players around him.
The Jets go right after the Raiders at number 7. Could you imagine Shedeur Sanders is on the board and the Jets just bypass him? Can you imagine the reaction with the Jet fans? But listen, we've been down that road before when Matt Leinart was available and they went with the Brickishaw Ferguson, which turned out to be the right move.
I think it'd be the right move to pass on him now as well. It's too high. If you could get him, in the second round, yeah, jump all over him, but not at number 7. I wouldn't do it. They will.
I would do it for the record if I'm the Jets. If he's at number 7, I'd take him.
That's fair.
Well, we didn't consider that maybe they get Stafford, they draft Shedeur Stevenson, let him sit behind Stafford and learn.
Shedeur Sanders,
Shedeur Sanders, right?
I don't think on number 6 overall, Mac. Once you have Matthew Stafford, who says he's only going to be there 1 year? It's not like he's 1 year and he's done. Matthew Stafford's a future Hall of Famer. He's too good to be a bridge quarterback at this stage of his career. You're not talking about a Jacoby Brissett type. You're talking about Matthew Stafford. You don't make a guy like him a bridge quarterback, and he wouldn't accept it either.
He wouldn't. Well, we saw it last year with Cousins. I don't think Cousins has got the resume that Matthew Stafford has, obviously, but he was a pretty effective quarterback, at least a regular season quarterback. And then the Falcons did exactly what Mac's talking about.
No, the Falcons are forced into it, Keith. They signed Cousins for 2 years. If Cousins played well last year, he wouldn't have only been the quarterback for the whole season, but he would have been the starting quarterback going into next year.
Great.
It was a long-range plan with Michael Penix. Yeah, I could understand a long range with Shedeur Sanders, but if you have a starter like Matthew Stafford and he's playing 3 more years, you don't use a number 6 overall pick on a quarterback.
I'm not advocating that they do it, right? I just know how these teams operate. If you're getting a Stafford, just like I said about Cousins last year, you've got to improve the team around him to win now. We're not talking about guys that are 26 years old, right? I mean, you gotta have a window that's very small, and that, and you've got to improve the team to win now. And Pete Carroll and Tom Brady think this team can win now with a quarterback and some tweaks to some other positions around it.
Well, the reporters get the news. NFL reporters get the news as let's see, who was it? John Schultz of NBC Pro Football accosts has a argument with Ian Rappaport.
Ian Rappaport,
and, yeah. So they get into it, and the NFL security and the league took statement from witnesses. I guess because they got some kind of feud going, and they got carried away to Starbucks. Who figured? Of course, Starbucks.
Yeah, if you're going to pay $15 for a coffee, I don't want to get punched in the face after I paid for it, right? So,
yes.
I don't. A lot of these things, they get little, as you said, they have history, and everybody's got their pushing point and their buttons that are going to set them off. I'm not a guy who gets into altercations. Well, not at 65 years old. I might have younger, but even then, you got to be smarter. You're going to cause a scene in a public place, and take your stuff behind closed doors somewhere and just settle it, right? 2 guys go in a room, 1 comes out. That's all.
That's all. Yeah.
Old school.
Exactly. Jack, have you ever had that happen to you where you and a reporter kind of go at it for a story or to interview somebody?
No, I can't recall there ever being hostilities. There'd be a number of guys I wouldn't like, and I'd imagine they didn't like me also, but it never got to that point where we would be yelling at one another or anything was going to go down to that point. I once got into it kind of a little bit with one of the promoters and security at the event. One of the promoters once, they sat me in, they didn't have a press section at one of the clubs. It was distorted, a smaller club show. And they gave me a particular seat to cover from. Right before the main event, they want to move me out of the seat for VIP. So I said, well, where am I going to sit now? The place is sold out. And they told me it's my problem. And I wasn't anxious to move so quick. So they summoned security to have me removed. Wow. The problem was the security knew me from all the fights and they were stuck. They didn't want to remove me. You could tell. And I didn't want the security to get in trouble. I didn't want him to lose his job. So I got up and left. I did it for the security guard, actually.
Listen, I've seen those.
Closest, yeah.
I've seen those pictures of Jack with that flowing hair, and he can see where he might have had a cocky come and take it from me. I can see it.
No, but you hear certain instances. You heard recently a great reporter passed away at age 85, Michael Katz. He used to, you might recall him when he wrote for the New York Times.
I do, yeah.
Right. He was the main boxing guy, and he got into a Ron Borges. I think Borges is writing for the Boston Globe at the time, well-known reporter, Ron Borges. And Katz was kind of trying to jab him with his cane. Was one of those that got out of hand. But recently when Katz passed away, Borges wrote a really nice tribute to him. But that was known in the press room.
As you get older, you don't look for fights, right?
Well, you look for things. I was sitting the same row with Bert Sugar, the great writer, and Roy Jones is boxing. And right in front of us were Roy Jones's family. And they kept standing periodically. And Sugar got annoyed, and he finally folded up paper and he threw it at them and they got mad and it was one of those. So you see these interactions like all the time. But Keith is right. Not in the sense, you don't want them to settle and fight behind closed doors. If you don't like the guy, just try to avoid him, walk away from him. You know, you don't want to get into it. I think what happens a lot of times, if one guy gets a scoop over another guy or claims he has a scoop, these guys pride themselves on having all this inside knowledge. And when someone else tries to exhibit it, they show a degree of resentment.
Sonia, thank you for sharing the show. And she also says, Jack is still snarky. He's not going to move.
I moved, but I did move, Sonia, voluntarily.
I have a new policy on altercations now. I only look to pick fights with very young children and very old women where I have a chance at winning.
Okay, well, there you go.
Well, George Steinbrenner, just a story with George Steinbrenner. When the Yankees lost the World Series game in 1981 to Los Angeles, Steinbrenner came back with a busted hand for the next game. And he said some Dodger fans on the elevator said some bad things about the Yankees. He punched them out. And Reggie Jackson said, something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, they must have been 6 and 8 years old for George to do that.
Okay, back to some more stories here. The Bucks reinstate John Gruden to the Ring of Honor after 4 years. I guess that's because of the big thing with the emails and stuff. So anyway, he's back in the Ring of Honor for Tampa Bay. Travis Hunter,
he never should have been removed.
I agree
from that.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a chance you'll see John Gruden on the sideline again. I think the window's getting, again, smaller there, but his name comes up more and more as the years go by. And he was in the mix this year for the Raiders. So I think you'll see John Gruden on the sideline again. I just have that feeling in the next year or two.
In college.
I mean,
maybe in college, yeah.
I mean, he's with quarterbacks. I mean, I saw his camps or whatever they were on TV. They were awesome.
Great stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So Travis Hunter won't work out at the combine. Don't blame him. No reason to. He will be working at the Buffalo's field for anybody that wants to come and watch him play. So that makes sense.
It shouldn't work out for anyone.
No.
It shouldn't work out for anyone. There's no need to. Everyone knows what he can do. I wouldn't work out. Do you honestly think the teams are going to pass on him, that he's going to slip lower than the Giants at number 3? I mean, it's not going to happen. He's probably going to number 1 to Tennessee now with Abdul Carter's, injury issues.
I'm still taking Carter above either one of those. Carter and Hunter I'm taking before either one of those quarterbacks. I'm not saying that'll happen for sure, but I still would take both of those guys before one of these quarterbacks. But to your point, Jack, if I'm either one, I'm not. If I'm Sanders or I'm Ward, I'm not working out for anybody. All I can do is
But Abdul Carter, I can understand working out only to show teams, the injury he has isn't affecting him. I can understand it from that perspective. But now, I mean, for the people who are going to pick Abdul Carter's number 1 pick in the draft, like myself, and Travis Hunter number 2, I kind of flip-flop myself now because of this injury. There's just a little doubt going forward over his career. Yeah. And Travis Hunter just seems more like a sure thing to at least stay on the field.
I agree.
Probably true.
Probably true. I agree. I mean, it's always going to be, can it get injured again? I mean, how what would happen there? So, NFL Network's Mike Garofalo is talking about a new virtual measurement machine for the upcoming regular season that will cut measuring time by more than half. So that's
why don't we just play the games on Madden and get done with it, right? We don't need the players. We don't need coach. We don't need referees. We don't need it. Let's play Madden and be done with it.
Yes.
I'm tired of all this. Baseball, football. I'm just tired of all the technology just taking over everything. And the human element means nothing. Human element is part of sports. In refereeing, officiating, and playing. It's part of the game.
I agree. I agree. You're taking a human element all out. It all started with the instant replay, and you know, I always thought that just let them play. It's been that way forever. They're gonna make mistakes, and normally evens out in the wash by the end of the year. So
agreed.
Yeah. So let's talk a little NBA. Anthony Edwards gets ejected, suspended for the 16th technical foul in the loss to Atlanta. He threw the basketball into the crowd. I mean, he's got to grow up. The kid's got to grow up a little bit.
Yeah, well, is he even can we even call him a kid anymore? It's not like he's 19. I mean, these temper tantrums these guys throw, whether it's him, Draymond Green's still doing it at 35 or whatever he is. NBA players just seem, for whatever reason, them and wide receivers in the NFL seem to be the diva of sports today, and it gets monotonous and it gets old. All these acts these guys throwing their little temper tantrums on the court. 16 technical fouls in the course of a year is a lot. Yeah. Coaches don't get 16 technical fouls in a year, for crying out loud.
It shows the feeling of entitlement. It also shows how weak these commissioners are, how scared they are the players' union. He does something like that, suspend them 5 games after. No, you throw a ball into the crowd. Yeah, imagine someone got hurt. They got hit with the ball. I know it's a long shot, but you hit a kid or something, flinging a ball into the crowd. Suspend Anthony Edwards for 5 games. If they really came down hard on these players, discipline-wise, they wouldn't be doing all these things. But they're allowed to have these tantrums, and because what are the consequences? 16 technical fouls. He's going to get suspended for 1 game and lose the money from 1 game. He probably welcomes the time off.
Yeah, that's possible too. Yes.
Yeah. So Curry gets 56 points last night. First player in history to have multiple 50-point games. I mean, you know, I when they first said he's the best.
Chamberlain probably did on his 50. When he averaged 50 points a year, he had to have a number of multiple 50-point games. Man.
Yeah, he's the second. Oh, well, I don't know. That's what it said. So anyway, you know, I used to think,
second to who? What's the story say? He's second to who, Mac?
He says he's the first player in history to have multiple 50-point games, which Jack is right.
That can't be right. He averaged 15 a season, right? 100 points. Yeah, he was 15 a season. He had to have scored more than 50 a bunch of times that 1 year.
Yeah, 100 points in 1 game. So, I mean, that doesn't make sense. So, but let's talk a little bit about the Lakers. I mean, they're still playing well.
Let me go back to the Warriors for a second. Warriors are a team to watch out for in the West because Jimmy Butler, I don't agree with how Butler got himself out of Miami, but I think Butler's a nice fit for this Warrior team. And I think he's rejuvenated Curry a little bit. Even Draymond Green, his team's won, I think, 5 in a row, and 7 out of 10. They're getting themselves out of that play-in tournament situation. I think this team will probably move up into the 4th or 5th spot and have a chance in the West. I think this team is rejuvenated by the Jimmy Butler trade. So a team to watch out for. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
I'm telling you the team to watch out for long in advance. And the Dallas Mavs, when Anthony Davis comes back, people don't realize what a force they're going to be come playoff time.
If he plays every game, yeah.
I don't know about that.
And I got to tell you, the other day, if you looked at the box score with Ben Simmons, in a limited time, if you prorate his numbers, you're taken aback, and then you think he's probably playing for the contract next year.
God help the team. He signs a long-term contract.
Yeah, but he could help the Clippers this year. And if K.Y. Leonard shows up come playoff time, you have so many intriguing teams that, have a chance to come out of the West. Of course, the Lakers, who are playing real well. LeBron's amazing. But he did last night again, the numbers he put up, the way he's doing it at his age, if LeBron does this a few more years, how can you not say he's the greatest of all time? He could do things historic, play into his mid-40s at a high level like that.
He's a remarkable athlete, a remarkable player. He gets a bad rap for some good reasons at times, but you can't take away the fact that he is at least one of the top 2 players of all time, I think. So, again, I was a LeBron backer for a long time. I'm not as big a backer as I have been the last 4 or 5 years, but he's a great player, and you can't take that part away from him.
Well, I mean, LeBron played all these, has got these points because he played so long. Suppose Jordan played that long. I mean, how many points would he have?
Credit the guy for playing all that time. That has a lot to do with greatness, longevity. That's what I mean. There are 2 ways you could rate someone, what they've done over their career and what they are at peak value, at their very best. Some guys at their very best only for a couple of years. I mean, you look at the other sports, look at baseball. For peak value, Don Mattingly was just about as good as anyone at peak value. But if you look at what he's done over his whole career, longevity, he hasn't made it into the Hall of Fame, at least yet.
And he broke Jabbar's record. Jabbar played about 20 plus years too. I mean, he got his record over a lot of period of time.
That's true. So you're talking about the West teams, the Oklahoma City Thunder, led by Shai Gilgeous.
The most underrated play in the game.
Yeah. The one player nobody knows anything about. Nobody knows anything about him, including me, until I hear his name. I go look for him again.
Right. He slips under the radar, and you can make an argument he's the best player in the NBA, arguably only.
Yeah.
You could say that, and no one talks about him.
Well,
because he's playing Oklahoma City. That's why.
No, not true, Keith. We talked about Russell Westbrook big time when he was with OKC.
More
Durant, but
bigger name.
John Gilgeous Alexander. I don't know. Maybe it's his name. It doesn't
might because it's easier to say.
Right. Yeah, very much so. As you saw,
playing with Chet Holmgren, a heck of a player too. That's a heck of a 1-2 punch. OKC is actually the favorite to win it all.
Yes.
Come out of the West, I should say.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Good team.
So, as you said, it is very loaded over in the West, but in the East, really Celtics, Cleveland, Knicks. Maybe if they do something by the end of the year, I guess the Bucks are still kind of in it. Philadelphia is definitely not going to be in it this year, guys.
The East is a little top heavy with the Cavaliers and the Celtics. The Knicks are still solidly in that 3rd spot, and I mean, as up and down as they've been, and some of the shortcomings they have, we talked about the other day depth wise. I still think this team will finish 3rd in the East, but I don't see how they're given the way they played against the top contenders this year, both in the East and the West. They don't show that they're going to be able to really compete with them. Maybe they get to the semis, maybe, but I don't see.
They meet the Boston Celtics in the semis. Celtics are probably the number 2 seed, and odds are the Knicks lose that series. So I can't see them going past the semis of the East. But if I'm the Knicks, I would run it back next year with the same crew, but try to pick up more depth.
Agreed.
Try to make some adjustments, but I would leave the core of the team intact. I wouldn't make any major deals.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And the Celtics are going to be in a really good position to potentially repeat this year, I think, because I don't think the Cavs are going to be able to match up with the Celtics in the playoffs either myself. So,
okay. So let's we'll go to Jack's favorite subject, the combine. The NFL scouting combine, the defensive line, according to Reddick, the former GM, probably the best group of players coming out will be the defensive line this year.
The combine's good for what it is, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it either. Guys running around shorts, and I time them. What do I care what they run or jump in shorts and show me in pads and, anyway, I guess it's useful for some guys to get some visibility that they wouldn't get.
It's good for the lower rounds, Keith.
True.
Fifth, sixth, seventh round free agents.
Yeah.
It's good for some guys. The upper echelon guys, teams make a mistake on them. You have all the game film you need. They've had a career in college. You don't need to see them up close. You could catch them on a bad day. You're catching them out of season where they might not be in top form either. And then they do these silly interviews where they try to get inside the guy's head to see is he a fit. I mean, they're interviewing the guy as if the guy is like dating their daughter, and they want to hear the answers that they like. I mean, is he a good citizen? That's the problem with your Giants, Mac. That's why they're not going to draft Shedeur Sanders, because he doesn't fit into the Giant culture, their way of thinking.
I think that Mac's right. The defensive line is probably the strongest, from what I've seen and heard and read outside of just that comment. I think defensive line and defense itself is probably a lot stronger than the offensive side of the football in this draft in general. Yeah, offensive line, which everybody seems to need offensive linemen, is still pretty weak, which is why I don't think it'd be an awful thing. One of the few guys I like is Will Campbell out of LSU. And if nobody else falls to the Patriots, Hunter or Carter specifically, I think they'll go with Will Campbell, and I think it would be a good start to fixing that offensive line from the Patriots standpoint. Anyway, not a lot of great offensive linemen in this draft, and everybody needs offensive linemen. You saw Kansas City, how bad their offensive line is.
I know. And the Patriots, of course, they got a lot. What is it, $129 million under the salary cap? And
it's something like I don't. Yeah, with them raising it now to 279, I'm not sure what the Patriots number is. That may be the number adjusted. I don't know. But we just keep raising it and raising it. I don't know the sense of having a cap if we're just going to keep raising the number every year. It's like the national. We just keep taking it up.
Just do what the baseball does. Don't have a cap.
Did you see the report card grades that the NFL Players Union, they sent the players questionnaires? And I think Patriot owner Robert Kraft, he rated very low, like he was the worst owner because of the facilities, to this, to that. You'd think Robert Kraft would set up the best facilities. That's the image he had. Maybe after a couple of years of just, being on top, even when a bad year for the Patriots over a couple of decades was losing in the AFC Championship game. That was a bad year. Yeah. And you get spoiled. Do you think the Patriots got so spoiled now that they have this reality check? I mean, I heard Kansas City had the same issue, I know, a couple of years ago. Their facilities, they're this, they're that, and they were on top. And you kind of wonder. Woody Johnson, the Jet owner, got an F by the players. Yeah. That's kind of understandable in a way. So,
no, I get it with Woody Johnson. And I think you're right. I think the Crafts did get a little complacent with some of that stuff. And it's a reason that things have fallen behind. I mean, the culture changed in the locker room. The facilities fell behind some of the other organizations. And that stuff needs to be addressed. I mean, they were the model franchise for 2 decades, which is why they were hated for 2 decades. Yeah. And that's not the case anymore. I'm middle of the pack as far as overall organization at best.
Well, the Giants didn't rate too high either, especially with the families. I think they got an F1 according to, how they treated the families of the players. So, I mean, all 3 teams didn't do too well in that grading system.
Which is interesting because I would think that over the course of history, the Maras have had a very good reputation as far as how they treat the people and the families within the organization. And it's interesting that that's kind of fallen to the wayside.
Wait. But if you're the owner and you tell the players, you want your families to be treated so wonderfully, you treat my family well, you win.
Fair. That's fair.
My family by losing. I mean, you're having a miserable season. I wouldn't worry about how your family's being treated. You got tickets. They can come to the game. They're good seats, and that's that.
You could also say, well, give us a team that can win too, Mara, because we haven't had a winning team in about 5 years. So
well, the players aren't going to say that to the owner. They're the ones that got to win.
I'm talking about the families, Jack.
The families to say to Mara will say to the families of the players, well, if you tell your husband to do this or that, or your son to do this and that, they're lucky they're in the league. Come on, Matt. Get
It
out
does
of
go both ways, though. The players don't show a lot of loyalty to the organizations, no matter how well they're treated. For the most part, there's a handful of guys that will, but for the most part, they're not showing any loyalty when it comes time for a loyalty check either.
I agree. So let's see what else we got here. Data showed there were no concussions across the league last season.
No
now,
concussions.
I don't know if that's. I
think the guy who had a concussion.
I don't know what data they're looking at. Maybe they're saying, no bad concussions. I don't know. Maybe that's the league just trying to.
The whole thing with the concussion syndrome, anyways, we don't know how bad these concussions are till years later. A lot of times. So, yeah. Again, I'd like to know how many concussions the guy who put this report together had. Because he must have had a few.
Hey, the NFL is trying to, look better than what it is.
Well, they need to do something there in that regard, and they're always trying to put themselves in the best light, and then players come out and put them in a bad light again.
They got that protective, the protective dome. I
hate it. I hate it. I feel like
the guy got a concussion anyway.
Yeah,
the wide receiver there.
You're only going to get so much protection. I mean, to me, I don't know, and I don't want guys to get hurt. If it would help, I'd be okay with it. I guess it just looks so silly when I see one of these guys with his giant head. I feel like I'm watching, like playing an old Madden on the old Nintendo, like 40 years ago when it just came out.
We should go back to Jack's days where they didn't wear helmets, and that way there would be less.
Back in the day, a player get a headache, they tell him get back in the game. He'd be considered soft if he's on the sideline, and if he'd want water on a hot day, it would be considered a sign of weakness.
Yeah, how many fingers I got up? As long as he didn't.
Hold up.
He got within 2 fingers. They put him back in the game, right? Like 4, close
to
enough.
The league is doing it the right way now with these safeguards. Absolutely.
I mean, rugby they don't have helmets. You don't hear about a bunch of concussions in rugby. I mean, they have to tackle low. They don't lead with their helmet like you're supposed to tackle. You're supposed to put your chest into the guy and then bring them down.
It'll never happen. It'll never happen, and we've probably talked about this on this show. But you really want to get rid of concussions, take the helmets off the guys altogether, as you kind of alluded to with rugby. If you took the helmets off them altogether, there'd probably be less of that.
Yeah, I think there would be. Sometimes the old ways are better than the new ones. Of course not. They'll fine you, right? If you take your helmet off now, they fine you.
You can't take your helmet off ever, right?
That's right. Oh, let's see. Anything else I got here for you? Jack, the Jets. What do you think they're going to do in their draft?
I'm hoping Shedeur Sanders drops, but the question is, let's say he's at number 7 for the Jets. Are they going to take him? They haven't given any sign, any inkling, and the teams don't want to give away what they're doing. Even the Titans, who are going number 1, and they don't have to worry about anyone jumping over them, they don't want to give away what they're going to do just in case someone speculates and they offer them a really, really good deal. I kind of sometimes wonder what it would be worth to a team that's going number 1 or 2 to trade away a Travis Hunter, to move down in the draft. What could possibly be worth it? I don't necessarily think 4 players for him would be worth it, depending on who you'd be getting. Let's say you go down in the draft and now you're picking number 13 this year, and then you're picking next year, and that might be the 20th pick in the first round, and then they give you number 2, which will be useful in the number 3. Is that necessarily worth trading a generational talent for an impact player? So I kind of sometimes wonder. And the Jets at number 7, by the time they go, we should have an idea what's going on, because if the quarterback position is up in the air, Tyrod Taylor's the guy, and they pass on Shedeur Sanders, I mean, Shador Sanders, like Keith says, he could potentially really drop. It could be a shocker where he could go something like 21 in the draft. I'm just, throwing a number out there. What was the kid from Brady Quinn from Notre Dame years
Brady
ago?
Quinn, that's what I was trying to think of earlier.
Marcus Russell was supposed to go 1-2. That was a big question. Who was going to go first? And Marcus Russell went first. And it was an Al Davis signing. Lane Kifflin hated the idea. He thought Jamarcus Russell would be a bust. Al Davis thought Jamarcus Russell would be great. And Jamarcus Russell turned out to be a bust. Let's be honest about it, for whatever reason. Was it talent, attitude? I don't know. Keith could talk about it.
He didn't study.
But
he also hit himself out of the league, too. He was huge by the time he left the league.
I was reading a thing about him. They gave him tips on the defense. They were blank. And then we came back to camp. I mean, to the training facility. They said, "Did you study did you listen to the information on tape?" He said, "Yes." So he didn't ever listen to the tapes.
Yeah. I mean, guys, we just have to look at last year's draft sometimes to see how things worked out. I mean, we agreed last year, at least Keith and myself, Marvin Harrison really was the guy you would be looking at to perhaps be the number 1 overall pick in the draft, that he was a generational talent. We don't know yet. We know he's going to be very good, and he was good, but he didn't have a chance to shine with Kyler Murray in Arizona.
Right.
It was kind of something about their offensive scheme. He was kind of held back a bit. So if they could redraft from last year, what would teams do? Would the Bears necessarily take Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams? I'm not certain about that, guys.
I'm not either.
Caleb Williams has all this upside. He's such a great competitor. Okay, he might ultimately be a better quarterback than Jaden Daniels. I can't say for sure who's going to ultimately be better. But Jaden Daniels was the guy last year. And number 3, Drake May. Would the Patriots take Jaden Daniels over Drake May if they had a do-over? They don't have a do-over, but if they had that opportunity, yeah, I guess they probably would, I would guess. But Drake May would still go number 3. Marvin Harrison taking number 4? Would he go still number 4? Would they go with Joe Alt, the offensive lineman? There'd be little tweaks. I think the Falcons are now happy they took Michael Penix. They would do it again because Kirk Cousins, kind of faded out. But with my Jets, with Fashanu, the offensive lineman, who showed a lot of potential, who might be very good, I at the time was complaining, take Brock Bowers. He's going to be, a Hall of Fame tight end. I was arguing at the time.
You got a tight end there that's going to be overlooked by some teams in the first 10 picks. Ty Warren's going to be a player like Brock Bauer, I think. He blocks well. He catches the ball well. And the Patriots might even consider him at 4. Who knows? If he gets to 7, I think the Jets should consider Ty Warren as well.
Is he the one from Penn State?
Yeah.
Yes.
If Shador Sanders is available at the Jets at number 7, do they bypass him for tight end?
I would, but again, I'm not doing the drafting. You're right. Teams don't want to take that chance. They don't want to alienate their fan base. We don't have a quarterback. How are you not taking Shador Sanders? Well, because a lot of people haven't projected past the first round as far as a prospect. Anywhere from 15 to,
What
30.
about this kid from Ole Miss who's moving up on the boards a little?
Jackson Dart?
Yeah.
Yeah, he could go late first round now. I still think he's early second round. But he's a good player. But again, playing in a pass-happy offense, you get into the NFL, things are a little different than playing in those.
Let's say you're faced with this scenario. You're getting in the second round, early in the second round, and you're the Jets, for example. A team like the Jets need a quarterback. Do you move up early in the second round, you flip-flop number 2s, and you give a number 2 for the following season to just move up a few slots to take Jackson Dart, or do you not deal at all and you can get Quinn Ewers?
I would, Keith.
That's an interesting scenario. I think those are two guys, and I think another guy, the kid from Syracuse, McCord, is another guy to watch as a potential value pick in the second, third round of this draft, maybe in the fourth round of this draft. So there's some guys you can get: Ewers, Dart, McCord, and I'm probably a couple of names.
Not Milrow. You know, from
I'm not a big
go number 2. Jalen Milrow, to me, if he's around in the 5th round, okay.
He'll get overdrafted.
Yeah, I wouldn't take him before the 5th round. I'll be honest about it. I'm not even saying I'd take him then. You know, if he's around in the 6th round, you know, those 6th round selections have a 50-50 chance of making the team. I would take him under that scenario. But look what the Jets did last year in the 5th round. They took Jordan Travis, you know, was injured from Florida. It was worth taking a chance on him. But once one season goes by and the guy's your 3rd string quarterback and he's not moving into your backup role the following year, that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah. And Milrow, by the way, is going to be long gone before the 4th, 5th, and he's going to go in the back of the 1st or 2nd round. He's going.
I think it's a mistake.
That's what they do. That's what they
all reach. Everybody reaches. That's the problem.
They do. And then they don't want to admit it when they're wrong. When it's time to face the music, they don't want to admit it. So they'll keep them longer than they have to. Folks, that's it. We're at the top of the show. I appreciate you coming in. Thanks to Sonia for sharing. Thanks to Rick Sherlock. Appreciate all the future shares. Hopefully, when we do it, when you see the show. Keith, thanks for coming in on Friday, as you always do. Glad to have you back. Jack, great job as always. Great job as always, and we'll see you on Saturday on the Mac, Jack, and James Debate Show. Stay going out tonight.